at the end of the day, the essence of recreation and leisure, the itself, like feeling like you have the time to do the things that are valuable to you, that are important to you in the way that you want to do them, with the
Mhm.
people who you want to do those activities or experiences with, really gives you the social benefits, the physical benefits. There's lots of research out there that shows that, if you're outside, just being exposed to nature helps mental health and physical health, as well as the social connection. I think, again, there's lots of research out there that shows that, just being around people, particularly in recreation activities and leisure activities, can really benefit, physical health, mental health, spiritual health, cognitive health, the whole array of ways that we think about how people can be healthy.
Another episode of the Speak Real podcast, sharing one-on-one conversations. We believe that storytelling is the best way to empower youth and give them the platform to find their voices.
Presented by YouthSpeak. Youth experience, youth voice, youth empowered.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Real podcast. I'm your host today, Carson. Thank you to TD for partnering with us on our IG Live and podcast episodes. And without any further ado, I want to introduce our guest. They are a professor and chair at Brock University, Recreation and Leisure Studies. And we're going to hear more about the work that he does. So let me introduce Tim O'Connell.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming on and talking with us about therapeutic recreation. We really appreciate it. Let's start off with telling our listeners a bit about yourself and your professional background.
Sure. So, as you said, I'm a professor and chair of the Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario. I've been here since about 2006. I was a professor at Lakehead University for a few years before here. And I've worked kind of in the recreation and leisure field and in outdoor recreation in particular for probably over 30 years, both in the academic world, and I was a full-time guide for quite a while and worked in higher education and in other ways. So that's a little bit about me.
Cool, awesome. And what exactly inspired you to pursue recreation and leisure studies?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I was in high school, I worked for the town recreation department where I grew up. I was a lifeguard and, worked in some of the sports leagues and things like that. And I didn't even really know that you could pursue a career in recreation and leisure studies, until one day I was talking with the recreation supervisor, and, he mentioned that you could get a degree in it. And, it was a professional field, and had been around for quite a long time. So I just thought that was really cool. And when I went to the university to check it out, I originally thought that I was going to pursue community recreation because that's what I knew. I was, worked for the municipal town and recs department. I liked it. I enjoyed that. But then when I got there, of course, you learn more about it. And I learned that, there's the therapeutic rec side of things, community recreation, and outdoor recreation. And I
Mhm.
love being outdoors and kind of working with people in the natural environment, and thought, wow, this is great. I love to do those things, and I can actually get a degree in this and, make this my career. So that's kind of how I ended up in it. And, it's been a wonderful journey since then.
That's really cool. Yeah, because I find that sometimes you start down one path, you go through some things, and maybe you kind of just see like, oh, this fits better. I definitely can relate to that. Um, I do kind of have an understanding of therapeutic recreation, but for our viewers, what exactly is therapeutic recreation?
Yeah, so therapeutic recreation is it's a bit of a systematic process that uses recreation and other activity-based experiences to help people either foster strengths they already have, or to address identified needs that they need to continue to develop, often as a result of some kind of an injury or disability, or just getting older, or a change in life, um, a change in their life status somehow.
Hmm.
Uh, and it is a process. So there is a bit of an evaluation, pre-evaluation, a plan that's developed. And then, there's definitely goals and objectives that are identified, that people are working towards. And, we're basically trying to increase people's well-being in a number of ways, physical, mental health, and overall well-being at the end of that process.
Yeah, that's great. And you're a professor and chair, but I'm sure there are other career opportunities in this field. So what are some other possible careers in this field?
Yeah, so in therapeutic rec in particular, I think the things that people, when they start out in it, that they see almost immediately would be, what we would call more clinical type placement. So it could be working at a hospital, it could be also working at, like a mental health organization. Oftentimes people will work in long-term care homes.
Mm,
Those would be the kind of the key ones that people would probably think of at first. And I think there's also other opportunities that kind of blend all the different aspects of therapeutic recreation with other types of recreation, like community recreation, outdoor recreation. For example, there are programs that work, using nature-based activities to do therapeutic recreation experiences. Same thing with, community recreation organizations will oftentimes offer therapeutic things as well. Uh, so I think that, it's not you can basically apply those skills in lots of different areas. And I think that there's lots of nice job opportunities and career opportunities out there for people who would be interested in it for sure. Um, I do think, in Canada and the US, therapeutic recreation specialists have definitely been more integrated into more of the clinical settings. They're interdisciplinary teams of delivering, treatments and whatever, if it's mental health treatments or medical or physical health treatments, they're part of those interdisciplinary teams. So they work with doctors, nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and rec therapists are often part of a team that are working together to promote strengths in individuals and also address some of those things that they may need to work on due to injury or illness or change in life circumstance.
yeah, and that's that's wild actually, because now I'm realizing I know two people who've done something similar. I knew of one, but now two is coming to mind. I'm like, oh wow, that's it's great that you know people are able to do this kind of work, because there's a massive importance behind physical well-being and mental health. All of it really does connect. Now I wanted to ask, in what ways does therapeutic recreation support mental health and support emotional well-being?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in general, recreation and leisure, I think, is just a foundational human need. And I think oftentimes folks that in general that don't have access to recreation and leisure experiences, may have or notice, either physical or mental health challenges because of that. I
Mhm,
think, for folks who have, experienced, the COVID pandemic, we certainly kind of realized that very quickly that we didn't have access to some of those things that we did, and it was basically that, within the flick of a switch, in essence, we couldn't go outside, or we couldn't go to parks, we couldn't see other people, we couldn't access programs, or be around others, and we really saw impacts of that.
mhm,
I think in terms of, therapeutic rec, um, itself, uh, again, I think it's really targeted towards individuals, again, towards strengths that people already have, as well as areas that people can continue to develop or work on to address some of those things that may have happened because of an injury or a disability or a change in life circumstance. And I think, in the end, at the end of the day, the essence of recreation and leisure, itself, like feeling like you have the time to do the things that are valuable to you, that are important to you in the way that you want to do them, with the
mhm,
people who you want to do those activities or experiences with, really gives you the social benefits, the physical benefits. There's lots of research out there that shows that, if you're outside, just being exposed to nature helps mental health and physical health, as well as the social connection. I think, again, there's lots of research out there that shows that, just being around people, particularly in recreation activities and leisure activities, can really benefit, physical health, mental health, spiritual health, cognitive health, the whole array of ways that we think about how people can be healthy. So, Yeah, I think it's basically the sky's the limit, and I think it's just providing opportunities for folks, and Therapeutic Rec does that nicely and specifically because it is a systematic approach, as I said earlier, with targeted outcomes, that are meant to help individuals again foster those strengths and address some of those weaknesses or areas that they need to develop. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely can relate to that. Especially when I was younger, I would go on these really long walks, and specifically just getting outside and walking around, it really was beneficial for me. And I got back into that about a year ago, and it has been very, very helpful for me personally. And I'm also like thinking of a recent podcast episode we did on forest bathing. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure our YouTube team can show the little icon if anyone's interested in that episode as well. I'm curious about this aspect. When it comes to the term recreation, could you share an interesting finding from a study on recreation itself?
Yeah, sure. There's lots, but I think there's the one of the ones that I like to talk about a bit is from 2019, and it's
Mm,
really a study that kind of captured, I'll say, a basket of studies and reported kind of, this is the state of the nation in a sense of what's going on in terms of how nature-based recreation experiences can impact mental health of like a range of folks.
mhm,
And what the researchers did in that study was they looked at, they tried to basically cast a broad net and look at all the research that was out there and then try to, synthesize that and just report on, where things are at and what people had found, so that people could really have a kind of a, place to go to really understand, again, that's kind of the state of the nation, what was happening at that point, what was the state of knowledge. And basically what they found was that several of the studies, responded or saw that there were really positive impacts from being, outside in nature. And it doesn't have to be like a wilderness area. It could be your park. It could be your backyard. It could be, walking down your street, just as long as you're out, in nature, however people define that. Could be that range from, your backcountry camping experience, canoeing experience to, again, that city park or green space that's just down the street from wherever you might live.
mhm.
And what they found were things like, improved perceptions of anxiety and stress, improved ideas of body image, being away from kind of the stereotypical beliefs of what it was to be a person in a non-nature-based setting. Um, you know, Decrease in depression. I mentioned anxiety and stress.
Mhm.
Um, Better cognition. Some people had a clearer thinking. Um, are able to think more clearly, I guess.
Yeah.
Improve mental health, overall well-being, improve physical health. Just kind of the laundry list of all of those things that I think we intuitively know, but then the research did show more specifically that there were definitely positive, significantly positive impacts on people being in nature-based. And again, this was geared towards mental health impacts. Um, yeah, so I think that's really neat to, that there is that research that shows that, being in those places does make an impact for sure.
For sure. And it's really great to have that like scientifically backed up too, because it seems like something like you said, it seems intuitive, like it makes sense. So
Mhm.
to have that intuitiveness mixed with the actual data behind it. I love when that stuff comes together. It's very great.
Yeah. I do too. I think it's, I think again, going back to the COVID pandemic, I think it's one of those recreation and leisure and therapeutic rec services in particular, I think are one of those things that a lot of people take for granted until we don't have access to them. We
No,
think,
for real. That's true.
yeah, it's great, like to be able to, we can just walk down the street, hopefully to a park or green space or access our community recreation center or programs for, you know, people of all ages. And then when those things close down, I think people really realize the importance of those services and places to their health and overall health and well-being.
Yeah.
And I think, there's been a little bit of a renewed interest, I think, in recreation and leisure services across the board because of that. And I think people, again, have become, more appreciative of what rec and leisure professionals and therapeutic rec professionals do for them on a daily basis. because of lack of access to those services. So yeah, I think it's the pandemic wasn't a good thing, but it was a good thing, I think, in hindsight, in terms of people appreciating rec and leisure again, maybe more fully, or at least being more aware of the benefits of it.
Yeah, yeah, sorry, my brain just kind of went into a bit of a weird tangent there, but that this kind of like when people talk about the positives and negatives of COVID, I always get a little bit because the pandemic was extremely helpful for me in a lot of ways, not just with my mental health, but with my understanding of myself and my understanding of the world around me, and finally like figuring out a lot about myself. I can't really expand more on it without going on into a whole other tangent, but um definitely that outdoor piece played a role in it for sure, because when you're kind of stuck to one place, it does impact your mental health a lot. And I think people definitely saw the benefit of leaving the house just from that time period alone. It's like when the choice is taken away from you, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I had done a study in Canada looking at impacts of COVID on recreationists, and we started it during the pandemic. And I hadn't really asked too much about mental health, and had asked one open-ended question at the end of the survey, and it was just like, anything else you want to tell us about impacts? And by and large, the biggest comments, or the most comments we got, were all around mental health impacts of not being able to access, regular outdoor recreation places. And this was early on when, there was the real lockdown where people weren't really allowed to go anywhere. And then as things slowly opened up, particularly outdoor spaces, that changed. Over time, people were reporting less mental health impacts. So it really was, I would say, an eye opener on, both ways, like positive and negative ways, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. Um, at YouthSpeak, we like to talk about the connection between the outdoors and mental health. So, could you share your favorite outdoor activity with us?
Yeah, certainly. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades when it comes to the outdoor activities, but I would say probably paddling, canoeing, particularly with my family, is one of my favorite. I have the good luck and being fortunate to be able to go on annual canoe trips with my partner and our son and other families. So we've kind of made that an annual event, and we do that. We're fortunate enough as well to be close to a river where we can paddle almost every day if we want to. So just being on the water, in the water, having the forest around, yeah, again, it's kind of brings out all of those. For me, it's like you can leave everything behind, and just be in that moment and enjoy, seeing whatever wildlife, birds might happen, if you happen across other people when you're paddling, stop and chat with folks and just enjoy, being together, and being lost in that time and space is wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. And I love canoeing myself. I wish I could eventually do it in a place that wasn't a high school pool. For context, in school I had they brought two canoes in during swimming, and you can't really do much when you got two canoes in a pool.
No.
Um, you're like just basically going in circles around each other.
Oh yeah.
But I have done like a little kayaking and some boat stuff, so I definitely get it. There's that feeling just being on the water that is. I've only had similar experiences a few other times, like watching certain animals, or just getting a nice view. They're very like key rare things that just completely empty my brain. um, and as an anxious individual, that is incredibly hard to do. So you can imagine. But I
Yeah.
really love that answer. Um, and you are a professor and chair at Brock University. So could you tell us more about recreation and leisure studies, particularly like the programs at Brock?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, we are in the Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies, and we have a 4-year degree program. And in that four-year degree program, students can specialize either in community recreation, outdoor recreation, or therapeutic recreation. And we actually we just found out in the last couple of weeks that kind of pending further approval, we will be having a specific Bachelor of Therapeutic Recreation degree, but that there's still a couple ministry approvals that need to happen. But we have a therapeutic rec program, but that will become a standalone degree program. So we're excited about that. Um, but within those three concentration areas right now, uh, students take kind of a core curriculum that's foundational in recreation and leisure studies. So kind of understanding, a bit about the discipline and the theory and philosophy of recreation and leisure so that when they're working with individuals in whatever context, they can kind of understand the psychology and sociology of why people enjoy recreation and leisure, why it's important, the research around it, that type of thing. Uh, and then as students kind of move through the program, they specialize more within each of those concentration areas to, gain the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that are really important to understand to, work in a particular area. And then students can take electives across those three areas. So if somebody's really interested in community and therapeutic recreation, they can kind of, ensure that they're getting some coursework across the board so that they can, find employment opportunities in, whatever context they're interested in. We also are, in terms of the outdoor area, we have in next fall, in 2025, we'll be starting a concurrent Bachelor of Recreation Leisure Studies and Bachelor of Ed with a specialization in outdoor education program. So students would come in, go through the recreation and leisure program, and then go right into a two-year concurrent Bachelor of Ed program at Brock in the Faculty of Education, and then come out with teaching credentials to teach at the junior intermediate level with specialization in health and physical education. So we're really excited about that. Um, and yeah, we've got some great things, happening, across the board in all of our programs. So students have the opportunity to do placements and internships. We've got a lot of great community partners and agencies and organizations that we work with. So students can basically literally roll up their sleeves and, get credit for experiencing some things that are meaningful workplace or, placements working with agencies that are, out there serving all kinds of different folks. So yeah, we have a great faculty and staff. And I think a lot of students don't realize, again, like kind of like I did back in the day, that you can get a degree in this and that it's a great career and, you know, um, it's a in demand, I think, field. And that, in some ways it's nice because, our job as recreation and leisure professionals is what lots of people, that's what they want to do. It's like they're looking forward to that on the weekend or when they have time to get to the recreation center or to their program or their sports league or whatever it is. That's what we do every day is we help people, engage in those experiences. So it is work on one side of things, but it's also very rewarding on the other. So our program, helps people get jobs in the field and be successful, in their careers.
That's wonderful. Um, yeah, 'cause especially the aspect of like, there's this field is really is growing. I think, especially we used to, we talk about online overdrive and being on our phones and technology
Hmm.
and all of that, more work from home opportunities. For sure, like there are benefits to the way that technology has improved people's lives day to day, but um, physically getting outside and that aspect of life is, it's needed now more than ever. So I can definitely see where there's a lot of growth in this field.
Hmm. Yeah, it's, and just the side note on the technology side of things, I think um, a lot of people are apprehensive to get away from their technology. And I think in, recreation and leisure, one of the nice things is you can, technology is integrated into all aspects of it. But in some cases, like for example, in some of the outdoor recreation courses that we have, we're in places where there really isn't cell service. And so we just say to students, you know what, you might as well not even bring your phone because there's really, you can use it as a camera, but there's no way to, do anything else. And oftentimes at the end of when we come back, that's one of the first things students say is, it was really great to unplug
Yeah.
for a 3-day weekend, or even just for a half-day experience. It's like I don't have to worry about social media or checking email or, following whoever on TikTok or whatever it is. It's just a way to really be in the moment away from all of that and, kind of things that are foundational and fundamental to individuals. You can, recenter yourself on those things and, think about how those things are important to you. Um,
Yeah, for
so,
sure.
so kind of related to what you were saying, but it's just one of those things that popped in my head, that
Yeah.
I from students on a regular basis for sure.
Yeah, I haven't had a moment where my phone didn't have service for quite a while, but I do remember that period of time. And honestly, the only thing I missed was having something other than one radio station to listen to when I was falling asleep. Everything else was like pretty chill. So, I'm seeing here something about Outward Bound and the Coalition for Educators in the Outdoors. So, what kind of work do they do?
I've been involved with both Outward Bound Canada and the Coalition for Education in the Outdoors for quite a while. So Outward Bound Canada, I'm part of their research advisory committee, which we basically, you know, uh, kind of it's the nitty-gritty work of kind of doing some of the evaluation stuff, but looking at what the impacts are of their programs. But what Outward Bound Canada does is really look at personal growth and development for youth in particular. And they offer over the summer and the winter programs that individuals can sign up for. And then they also offer school programs and group programs. And if folks are interested in that, I'd highly recommend looking at their programs. And of course, if you just go on any search engine and put in Outward Bound Canada, it will take you right to their website. They do have all kinds of programs as well for folks who are interested in working in the industry. They actually have a training academy that's running right now that's funded in a lot of ways for people to do some training. Some of it's online training, some of it's practical training in the field to see, if number one, if it is really what you think it is, and if it is for you as a career. Um, but again, it's a way to get your, folks' hands wet on that, um, or in that, I guess. Um, yeah, so really it's kind of personal growth and development using the outdoors, predominantly in outdoor activities, and anything from kind of wilderness expeditions to, half day or full day experiences, in urban settings. Like their headquarters is in Toronto and at the Brickworks in Evergreen Brickworks is
I did not
their
know
big
that.
thing. Oh yeah. Um, yeah, and they also have, various arms across the country. So there's out west, there's some places where they run trips out of as well. And Outward Bound is an international organization. So there's several schools in the United States as well as, around the world for sure. Um, and the Coalition for Education in the Outdoors is kind of it's morphed over the years, but it's basically a group of universities and institutions that are interested in outdoor education and promoting it. And one of their big programs is basically a research symposium that happens every couple of years. And that's really for anybody who's interested in research, students, professors, professional researchers, like from some things like the American Camp Association. People from Outward Bound Canada sometimes go. But just to learn kind of what people are doing in terms of research and how that may impact their programs, kind of in any aspect of outdoor education. So it could be outdoor adventure education, which would be more activity based, people going on canoe trips, that type of thing, to more environmental education, outdoor education in schools, things like that. So it's a broad range of interests, but it's a unique interdisciplinary look at how the outdoors can be used as an educational place and be used as a way to educate students about a variety of things. So they're both really neat institutions. And again, if you put either Outward Bound Canada or Coalition for Education in the Outdoors into a search engine, it will take you to their websites.
We can also put that in the description. We'll have the websites in the description for you, so you can save yourself a
Excellent.
Google search.
Yeah.
But speaking of things in the description to look at, how can our listeners connect with your department?
Yeah, so again, of course, the easiest way to do that is just go to the Brock University website. That's brocku.ca. And from there, you can enter recreation and leisure studies in the search engine there, and that will take you to our department page. You can also, scroll, surf around and find us through it's the faculties and departments link. And then we're in the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences. So one thing, just a note, if you are looking, is there is also a Department of Recreation Services, which is our on-campus, recreation service provider. So they run the pool, the intramural leagues. That's not us. We are a Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies. But many of our students end up working in recreation services, as lifeguards, as umpires and referees for the various intramurals, different things along those lines. So so if you're looking for us, look for Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies, and it's brocku.ca.
Awesome. We will have that linked in the description as well. Thank you so much, Tim, for taking some time out today to chat with us about this. We really appreciate it. We want to thank TD for partnering with us on our IG Live and podcast episodes. With that being said, that's it for this episode. Make sure if you enjoyed episodes like this and you want to see more of it, make sure to hit that like, subscribe, all that cool stuff. Leave a comment if you are willing to share a comment. I think that's pretty much it. So with that said, we'll see you next time on Speak Real Podcast. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
If you want to hear more stories, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. To support more youth by youth led projects, visit us at youthspeak.ca, where you can donate and spread youth mental health awareness.
YouthSpeak Charity. Speak, inspire, change.